What do you think?
I'm glad you asked. The 7-4 Falcons.
Wow. Okay.
Well, I mean, we're already
difference.
yes. We're going for a bit of a longer game, hopefully now, because they.
I really want a longer game.
They've been quite short today.
7-0, 7-1, 7-2.
Yeah.
A 7-3, maybe a 7-4. Treat us to a 7-5, why don't you?
Maybe a max OT even to just go at it.
What a spoil that would be.
That would be a spoil.
No, I mean, I think this is going to be the toughest challenge Falcons has had in this tournament. But remember, the one other time that this roster, or the parts of it that played last year, went up against an NA team, it was against TSM, and they won 2-1 in the map veto. Achieved was in that game.
It's a bit of a revenge story for him in that case, just wanting to make sure that it was the team, not the player, as the reason why they lost. The bands are coming through first, and as we mentioned, Theme Park, of course, is a bit more of a thinking map, as Fresh put it. You need to be making the right calls at the right time, work together a little bit more than you might have to on other maps where you could be reliable on your individual gun skills. So this is where we get to see what Falcons are made of here as they go up against DarkZero. Again, an established team in the side of Rainbow Six Siege.
I mean, you take your biggest brains and you take them to Theme Park.
Yes, that's what you do, yeah. You take the big brains, see how it works out.
I think the exciting thing was, the interesting thing was, the other map that could have been based on the sort of final end was Border. And
which is the complete opposite.
Which is the complete opposite. Like, of the sort of, you know, grayscale blend of black to white in terms of how quick and how aggressive a map can be versus how hefty a solid map can be. Border of Theme is like, what do we want? Do we want summer or do we want winter?
It is indeed the quite opposite. Cade to be the last one to be removed gives us the total of Cade, Dokubi, Ace, and Azami. Now, it might be a bit of a team you see in there. 3 of those, of course, have to do with breaching and architecture, and then Dokubi just overall annoying with the calls that she's able to make. Basically kick dead players off the cameras as well, allowing people to sneak through. They're having none of that here today on this map, Theme Park. And as we get going, it is Armory Throne first for the side of Falcons to defend on.
An Ace removal isn't the most common.
Yeah, no.
That's a very interesting sort of removal. Ace.
Luckily, there's plenty more hard breachers to use.
There is. But you have to look at what Ace does. And you have to look at how many teams, I'm not going to say have a dependence on Ace, but an expectation that he's going to be in the sort of matchup. It's not a big map for hatches. There's not, you know, the ones that you generally want to try and get control of. Well, that one's just been opened as a perfect example if you don't need it for the biggest read-through.
10 seconds.
It's not the sort of cost there, it's the range, it's the ability to burn things. It's a heck of a gun. It's like Ace in you can play entry in some regards. Some do.
Attackers are moving out.
Yeah, some definitely do play Ace with an entry. I mean, it's a good gun to play with here, so there's always the opportunity to bring that bit more aggressive. Now, as we get underway, doesn't seem like there's any immediate spawn peaks to come through, so we're starting this off nice and quiet.
Oh, you say that. Mad skills, he's hoping a fight drifts to his way down in the drug lab, but Canadian with a fuse shield is actually going to be sort of trying to make the distance elsewhere. Has the drone intel on the player. Now, you got to be cautious because they have the C4. If you enter, you'll get caught. They have the read and the calls on the player. You're a fuse with a shield. You're a chunky, noisy boy. They have some awareness. They did just drop at the same time as the rappel coming up, so they might have tried to cover the audio there of a player into Cafe. They've slipped their way through. They're sort of getting the drone out, or it's just a fake Gemini, in fact, I assume. You always see the outline.
Yeah, you always see the outline.
You always see the outline.
To come through, indeed. And as this drone right here will be giving away quite some information. It's going to be the fuse that has the opportunity to start use. It's going to be the kill to come through. There's not actually going to be the fuse that is going to be able to use the cluster charges.
I was going to say, you got aggressively up there. I don't know if they just didn't check that Valentino was holding that position. They hope they could put the pressure onto yellow stairs. They take the drop. The Candelas force a bit of motion. The kit is a bit isolated now. And here, Falcons, they played a couple of players up top. They had a lot of caution from underneath. And with that, there was a bit of a cost and a bit of a risk. The drop, instantly the blind through, Joker goes down. Pamba's able to get the lock-in onto barrels. There's somebody holed up on split, one on drug door as well. Mad Skills catches the drone, goes to try and follow through onto the player. Valentino gets Pamba and one more on the back end. Gaveni gets P9 and finally finds an end to it. But Valentino wants his fourth for the round. It's a 2 versus 1, 1 versus 1. And what a way to open it up. A minute left. And Gav up against O'Kills.
Now it is going to be the Solace up against the Yana, which means that as soon as the Gemini gets used, it's going to be able to see that with the gadget. So it's going to be a game of information here. Maybe a bit of bluff to come down from either of these two. As a drone gets tossed in, will be watched, and that means they're going to be aware of at least one of the openings to be used. Just seen it come in. Now they know they're inside this site. Grenade's going to be tossed through the drone hole. He's not going to be finding anything. Even the default came up there. They're fully aware where he's coming from. And now it's just a moment of peeking at the right time, which he does. And the first round will go to Falcons.
First round, Falcons, they keep a flying, and let's be honest, a bit of a strange round, especially for Throne, which is obviously the most sort of defensively constructed site of maybe any single site of any of our map pool. And to have most of the violence happen just outside the site, obviously above the hatch and down below it, as we see from the drop of the top row to the bottom. But all of it around this barrel side, no walls have been opened, no destruction on towards the structure of the site itself. A very peculiar Throne round.
Yeah, so we haven't really seen like the actual hold come into play, right? Because the aggression all took place elsewhere, which means that they still have that in pocket. They can still play it another way, knowing fully well they haven't really seen the insides of the site. We're headed up to the top. We're not going to go to the other bottom floor one drug lab. We're going to go towards the bunk and daycare. And with that, we will have the extension as per usual towards initiation, towards the office as well. You see rotations being made, a shield set up in the vault. Just all there to stop any push to come in from the east, which it often does if this is the side. The other option they could go for in the attack, repelling a break, taking Cafe, see how far he can come from there on.
DarkZero, false start. They've moved off the fuse with the shield. They've opted for a very aggressive but potentially malleable lineup here. You've got the IQ as the lead through counterplay, obviously, against the Valk and the pocket of Mad Skills that was present previously round. You've also obviously got the reverse play against the Solace, but it's rare to have them with a direct show here. Instantly giving a good demonstration as we, I know that Pengu had some words about IQ in a previous map. He's a good player of it.
Yeah, IQ, of course, always gives you so much information, especially with the Solace on the board. It's a good counter against it. I'll sure get more view out of that one later on. Our Ceratoras are starting to come through just to find some pieces of utility, and NGR are starting to drive up. There's not that much time left, so we'll go for the Prisma instead. Just shooting it through at the last very second. The Clutch drone in the meantime as well is going to be getting some of these cameras. Clutch will live, and that camera has been hacked.
There it is, and we swap from Cam to Cam as this one is driving towards the shield, blowing it up and getting a little bit more damage. They're keeping themselves long range. Remember how Canadian died quite early on, took a deep dive in the previous round. This time, they're not giving themselves that option. Another theft of a camera here across it, and it looks like they have the entire swing of intel there.
They had the default cam out there as well, so they basically have everything on that side of the map under control. And that way, you don't have to put actually someone on flank watch, just someone to watch the cams as soon as you die, and you can respond accordingly if it does happen later on. So, Hamzu now trying to make some ground, is trying to force himself forward to dislocate one of these players. Gets caught up though by the Solace.
Solace showing what that P90 can do at the close range. Great reaction there from O'Kills. They're able to swing round and remove Pamba, remove the IQ and that extra bit of pressure here. But with a minute left, can they try and at least force a fight here? With the diffuser, with the kit in hand, they don't want to get themselves entirely caught off. Achieved does get a bit of revenge. But time is ever ticking. Almost a freebie. They're stuck in a corner. They need some support, and it's coming from underneath. The C4 does not get them. Gav has to pull back.
Lee buys you a second to try and fall back as well on the side of Falcons as Joker finds a kill, instantly picked up by the Claymore. Afterwards, Cavani now pushes in as well, finds himself a kill as we're in a 2-on-2 situation with 20 seconds left on the clock.
They're trying to just find a single piece, a single way they can double up. P9's facing one way and Valentino's trying to offer support on the other. It's 2-1 versus 1s in a very tight space here. Valentino, he doesn't want to get caught out. He's offering some support. They've traded which side they're watching. The pressure comes through onto P9. And now as Valentino tries to bite and fight his way towards the cover, Canadian has the instant response. One apiece.
Good stuff from DarkZero coming through there. Nice combination actually from Bravo and the IQ. IQ spawning out where all the cams were earlier on. The Bravo driving in with the drone to find them. That way you don't actually have to go looking because you have the IQ from above making these call outs. And afterwards, that was flank secured. They find some more kills. They start pushing through. Just managed to make it work. That's actually the way, somehow, able to still get the very opening kill there. 0 kills.
Now, obviously, they talked about it on the desk. They alluded to the fact that where Falcons have suffered, you know, maybe it's the stress of coming to this event, maybe it's a team thing, or most likely, it's because they've obviously had to have an unprompted roster swap around just before the tournament to compete. It's the team play and the synergy of attack that struggled. It always would be. When you have to have an IGL swap out, when you have to change how you're sort of marching your way forward, that's going to be the tricky thing here. So Falcons obviously want the 4 on their defense, probably angling towards a 5, because as soon as they get onto their attack, those stresses are going to get worse and worse, especially when you're up against some of the most storied IGLs, multiple, in the history of the game.
Yeah, for sure. Bit of a spawn pick attempt will be made here. A little bit of damage done towards Canadian, but nothing too much to worry about. Instantly put on the diffuser duty though. He's gonna be like, you took damage, that means you're gonna be taking it. Doesn't matter how little it is. By the way, Matt Skills actually just heard the jump in there. Pambazoo, is he fully aware of it? Matt Skills somehow doesn't see him in time. Pamba will be able to find a kill and instantly gets himself outside of the building again, I believe.
Oh, Pamba, that was a little bit of luck that guided your shoulder around there onto the swing. Mad Skills was reacting perfectly to the intel that they had, but maybe expected them to be a couple of places where they obviously weren't. O'Kills is under some pressure here, got the read on the cover on the hop out underneath. It's nothing that's too impossible to clear, especially when you have the impacts in the pocket, or at least 1 left, but still, there's also a lot of claymores.
Just making sure that these jump outs are not going to be successful if Falcons would like to go for one, and especially if you see 2 or 3 people on the rappel. Could be quite, you know, an opportunity you might want to explore if you want to go for a double or triple.
The Candelas start to cascade across the eyes of P9. He pulls himself to the other side of the shield. Valentino does go down as they hop themselves in and out. They're in the bathroom as well. Pamba gets P9, gets the end, gets dropped by a great shot from Joker. Cannot find the second. The Chief has it on lock, and suddenly O'Kills has 4 that he has to try and get to keep this round into Falcons' favor. A minute 20. DZ have all the time in the world to get their drones in position, as you can see them doing. Another reveal of the player. They're slowly moving in across the top of Arcade, filtering their way towards the site, just getting some cover on the door, and will just stick the kit. They have the solid chassis to give themselves some protection, even though he's got himself here all the way up towards the initiation room. Swing. DarkZero haven't overextended. They know where they want to have these fights. They know that it's a 4 versus 1. They still have a couple of bits of utility in pocket too.
Yeah, the diffuser will be taken down now. There's not much he can do here, because if DarkZero played this right, there's no way he's going to be able to get back into this. And you see them playing on contact here. 0 kills. Go! First will find a kill, actually. Flashbang pops behind him. He's still fully able to vision everything, but he gets taken down by Canadian prone right next to the diffuser. And with that, they find themselves their second round. DarkZero able to really put in some good work out here onto their attack. Because as you just mentioned, the defense is more organic. If you lack the IGL, or if you had to make a change in IGLing, the defense is still where you should be able to get these rounds to go your way. Pamba just perfectly aware there of what's happening. Giovanni as well, just pre-firing, knowing where he could be swung from at that moment in time. So DarkZero on a good path right now. If they keep this up, well, they might be able to go very comfortable into that second half on the defense.
It's the rough thing there for Mad Skills against a lot of other players. They might have been able to take care of it, but you see the pace on reactions. Flick to the door where he thought he heard the first audio, and then follow through into the fight in the map itself. Talking of pace options, Pamba toying with the idea of getting a quick zip.
It's funny to see an Amaru and a Montaigne on the same kind of side. It's
like an argument. It's like, you want to do that? Fine. I'm going to do
slow.
this.
I've got to balance us out, bring us back to even. But well, as we are headed back towards the armory, was Falcons able to get the clutch out last time? They were in a comfortable lead and started throwing away some 1v1s, not really playing on contact with each other and allowing the opportunity to get back into it for DarkZero. They want to make sure that doesn't happen this time around, but on the same time you have DarkZero, instead of using a fuse, using a Montaigne. A little bit more covered, you would say.
A little bit more. I'm curious if they try and hit some of the actual site itself. Obviously, as I said, it was a curious round last time because pretty much all of it happened as a violent gunfight around barrels, around arcade, without there being any pressure on the site. And, you know, Falcons obviously lent into those engagements. DarkZero obviously decided that was the engagements they wanted to take. Will it be a little bit more of a... Okay, let's maybe focus on Dragon. Let's draw some of the Falcons players over here and then do this. It seems like they want to get some of that idea done first.
That's it. You want to make sure that you shepherd them out properly. Don't give them the opportunity to play freely around the map because that's one they will come and get you. 0 kills. Waiting around near the top of Dragon. Spots out the Montaigne there. Actually, almost had an opportunity to go for some shots in the side, but Canadian dodges it all without taking a single point of damage. Now the E1D and the shield again to spot him out. There is someone on the back of it. You are going to be picked up, and Edgeout goes to one, but couldn't find a second.
Oh, I mean, they were entirely surrounded. Valentino getting one out the side. P9's trying to offer some support, but Valentino at this point in his life, it's so danger. P9 tries to get cover. It's Joker on the far side that actually does some of the damage, and Amonte is surrounded. Joker finds achieved, and Valentino survives. Gab's able to get one and then two on the back of it, but you have to give it there to Joker. Absolutely saved the life of a teammate who could not have been in more danger.
They just were completely aggro there. They lost the very first kill, and they were like, okay, let's send everybody up to the top floor to make sure we deal with this problem as it stands right now. Now, still 2 players up on the top floor. The first grenade comes through, but will not explode. Matt Skills takes him down and brings us to 2-2. Falcons, they equalize the scoreline, but now they need to do this on different sides. Now they need to make sure that they are going to be able to get that 4, as you mentioned, on their defense, because otherwise we might see them struggle on that second half.
That's it. I mean, regardless of how strange a round Throne seems to be playing itself out, it is still the only round that they've been able to take so far on their defense. You look at the previous 2 sort of swings and takes, and obviously the last one we saw in the 4 versus 1 post plant. Just before then, it was still sort of kind of swayed towards DarkZero. There's a lot that Falcons aren't quite getting the connection on here in terms of the hold on, and as I said, Joker, you hear so much about him. You see all the posts. Then he saves your life.
Just saves your life there. Heroics coming through. 2-2. At least we are being in a bit of a back and forth right now. It's not something we have seen yet today. So let's see if it can continue. Bring us all the way to 50. Now, I want to see this game go on. And it wasn't like the last round was very strategical to some extent, because, you know, they wanted to take over the top floor, and then Falcons was like, we'll happily take that fight with you. We'll all move over there as well. So again, we didn't really see any breaches come down onto the armory itself.
No.
Why bring a heart breacher even?
It really has been 2, I'm going to call it 2 attacks.
Yeah, at each other. Maybe Border was the right choice.
Maybe. Maybe they think they're playing Border. Okay, we've had a couple of loose players that haven't quite had the biggest impact when they're holding on to the other side. You do have one down at the bottom of Arcade. They've opened up some of those windows to apply some pressure to make them have to second guess. And, you know, you can see the Valk and the Alibi are more than happy to say, okay, well, we'll pay attention to this, we'll swing this, we'll swing that. They're not cautious, they're not scared. And most importantly, what you expect for a lot of defenders is when those windows open, the players will fall back. That's what Falcons are not doing. They're kind of setting themselves up, and we've seen it work well for them before.
I mean, it's what I said during the last game we cast it, right? Like, you open up these windows to put up pressure to make sure that rotations are not as viable anymore. But if a defender basically doesn't care about that, Oh, just waiting for the right timing now. So it's gonna be a 3-2-1 execute kind of deal.
The blinds roll through. NJR is able to get some attention as Pamba gets the zip straight onto the window. Canadian is going to roll another bit of pressure. No one has come from it. And look at Pamba. He's inside the site. He's trying to find a fight, and nobody is giving it to him. NJR's getting the drone out the round. There, he finally finds it. P9. Swung and got the aggression. Gav goes down in the meantime. Joker's going to go for the quick rotate. No kills is holding on with the Malusi of Valentino, getting some swing extra, but without any support onto that player. Well, there's the pickup. Valentino's down. It's a bit of a trade out, and they finally find the other down player, a 3 versus 3.
There's a bit of a surprise there, suddenly having the Ying in there, but in the meantime, the plan's going down. Achieve trying to make sure it's 45 seconds, counting down in favor of the attackers, and will successfully do so as well. Now it's just the post plan. Unfortunately, there's no outside angles they can watch here, so they need to be digging themselves in deep in the vault, in the office, and inside the cache. But as Matt Skills basically gives away his position, they should be able to take him down first.
I mean, they hope they would get a lucky spray through it to hop, so it's dangerous. Talking of, there it is. Achieved gets knocked out of the park by O'Kills. Pamba holds on, but he's only got a small amount of health, and those SMGs on the close swing are going to do some damage unless he does it first. Pop through the soft, 14 seconds, 2 players to find, and they're making everything blind inside. He's pretty much out of time, and by the end of this full white's gone, he is. However, he might be able to get another kill for his trouble. Ooh, it is, but DarkZero had done enough at that point.
Now you start to worry a little bit for Falcons, considering they just lost the opportunity of locking this off with a 4-2 split. The best they can do now is find a 3-3, but they need to find an extra defense here on Bunk. Now, that wasn't successful the last time around. Did get up to some quite close trading like we've seen in most of these rounds. Like, it's never been, like, close to a flawless. But the plant went down, they weren't able to stop that from happening. Like, they found a kill, but after that Canadian prone on the ground next to the diffuser, able to just shut them down. So a big task is here for the side of Falcons, stop them from getting into site that quickly. You just saw the last round as well, they're in the site. There's no one there to stop them, no one there to say hello to them as they enter your house.
They live here?
There's no one home, I guess we can just put the diffuser on the ground.
I mean, that's it. It's that sort of semblance of they find a way in, and they've done those quick plays most of the rounds, especially on the second story. Look at how DarkZero formulates the first play. Even the first death on the round before was caused by Falcons not expecting a player of DarkZero to have dropped at the top of yellow and then swung around to get them on the pinch on the back. They're trying to get there as quickly as possible. And O'Kills is going to see if he can P90 them to stop.
Going to be aware of him now, I think. Canadian,
yeah, he's gone.
Paying some attention to that window, but also knowing he wasn't really that vulnerable for it, so there's no point shooting with the para. Back at them. Very calm start. Kills will spot out that Claymore though, so knows someone is out there on that window. Second one to be placed. It's not real worried. There's nothing they can really do about him. This is what I meant last round when they were using Bravo IQ. You can use IQ to ping out these gadgets. Bravo will then enter with that drone and try and get the hacks to come through, which for the Allegiance.
Not sure if O'Kills just impacted themselves to maybe get a rotate there and get their way out, but they're now suffering. Yeah, open the Claymore. Got themselves the chance at the run out that they can take later on. I talked about that being an option and some viability for later on, but it's always a big risk and a big reward. It's a huge flat face. You could catch 2 or 3 people on those rappels, and think of how we've seen DarkZero approach this, where they had 2 or 3 people on the rappels on the back end that were sort of waiting for the pressure to come from the other side. One Falcons jump out could entirely derail the DarkZero execute. Oh, just caught the cam, but you assume it'll very quickly get shot out there.
At the same time, though, they should be aware of the fact that the Claymores just have been removed. Well, Matt Skills is definitely
he's going for it.
He's going to get taken down, though. Deals a little bit of damage to Achieved, but the entry kill's going to be there for DarkZeros. They read Falcons like a book there. They knew they removed those Claymores. No one followed up on it instantly, so you just wait for them to go for that jump out.
It's been tough here. For all the gun skill of Falcons and how great they've been at swinging into those engagements, it's hard to beat the unity of a team like DarkZero that's had more time to get itself together, that's had more prep of the roster that's here. on what is maybe the trickiest map, as they sort of alluded to on the desk, for team play, for coordination, where it's all built around that. Oh!
That's unlucky timing to unscope there for Canadian. Finds himself taken out right as the Candela start to pop, and that means that DarkZero need to make something happen now. A grenade to be tossed in.
They
Not in the right corner. There is someone waiting for you. Valentina pops up. Doesn't quite see him on the first attempt, but will still get that kill.
Great swing there around, and Joker's going to see if he can find his own on the backside of initiation. Does some of the damage towards the pillar, is achieved, stuck, holding out, and suddenly those Falcon guns I talked about being excellent are popping off entirely. They're pushing themselves back in. The aggressive positioning on the top of the yellow stairs, behind the bench, inside Cafe. They wanted to punish DarkZero's approach game I talked about earlier. They have done excellently at utilizing the strengths of their team, and I mean, okay, you've handed a couple of kills there to NJR, but hey, at that point, fair enough.
I thought it became a 1v1 out there in the last 3 seconds. A little bit hungry to make sure they find those kills there. Didn't go wrong this time around, but yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna say it, Emmy. Sometimes in Siege, the best thing to do is to just sit still and do nothing.
It is, however,
they probably wouldn't have lost that round, but you never know.
There it was. And this is the thing, though, is in that situation where DarkZero had all the space, but this is what I mean by the aggressive positioning. Valentino there tucked behind the sort of holding above on the hop over onto the top of yellow stairs. That is exactly where Falcons have been at their strongest. When they're able to just go, this is a gunfight and we're going to take it. Moving away from the idea of the, I'm not going to say slow and steady team play, but DarkZero's 3-2-1 coordination, putting them out of rhythm is fantastic. But as we said at the very start of this is the test, this half now for Falcons.
Yeah, because, I mean, again, a change in IGL, and with that, you know, the attacks are often a little bit more difficult because there's just more moving parts to the attack. Your defense, you set it beforehand, you have a well-thought-out plan, everybody knows what to do, everybody knows when to fall back, but on the attack, you need to adapt to whatever you are seeing, to whatever you're countering, and that requires a little bit more of that, you know, preparedness to come through from your IGL, experience as well. So this is the true test. This is where they need to show up if they want to be winning this map.
The approach of the Ossa, I'm not going to say standard, but it's seen quite a lot, especially out here on the cash balcony. You get yourself a bit of width and wiggle room, but P9 doesn't need it. Pamba taken care of quite early on, and that's a big boon here. Canadian seeing if he can try and move his way into a position to offer a bit of response, but as I said, the Ossa setting up out there isn't going to be the craziest thing. The Iana finds a repel fight. They still have a lot of support, and they have a lot of time, and that's what Canadian's trying to waste here. Oh.
Just as Canadian walks by, he's holding the angle now, so if you start to swing back in, but look at that. He's so aware of the fact he's being fully droned by the side of Falcons here, and as the drone spots him, he's going to take that out. Gonna see if there's a second one to come around, and then quickly goes back onto the angle. But you need to be careful here, Canadian, because you're about to be swung by 2 or 3 Falcon players.
I mean, look, all 5 of them have got themselves now up towards computer. They're pushing themselves steadily across. They're making sure they stay as a unit, and they're ready for the trade game. They have the man advantage, and the worst thing is being caught out and offering them a 1 versus 1. They're playing themselves cautious, clearing the space that they want, clearing the space that they need. They're likely now going to try and push down towards that sort of corner thrown prep wall and see what they can do from that end. They're not real Canadian, chasing ghosts at that point. They're seeing if, well, are they going to try and deep dive? But look at the rotation. Falcons, they've gone underneath now. They've started the pressure onto the wall. They're getting that open. The impact will not catch it. And now Falcons have an eye towards the site.
And that's something they can start leveraging. 3 people out there. I believe there's a talent shield to be set up as well. Canadian, you need to make a move if you want to be striking them in the backs. And Gerardo will take down the Ossa. I believe the shield might still be out there. They might still be able to use that for the post ball afterwards, but Canadian drops, finds one. It's then Gerardo to go aggressive, but he will not be able to find a kill with the Supernova.
They're watching the rotate here, but that's the kit, and there it is. Repick back up by P9, who's having a meteoric round here. Achieved is on the back line, 40 seconds, and he is the only line left. Gav is down. Do they know? They might find out sooner rather than later. The pings are coming around on the corner. Oh, what a shot! P9, purely a filthy round.
And I managed to find success on Armory right away. According to many, the most difficult side to attack on this map, considering the fact that it is so boxed in. There's only 2 real entrances. Usually, they do manage to keep those walls shut. This time, though, not the case. Falcons, they open it up, they try and leverage it, and find themselves with success.
I mean, the team play was together. They knew what they needed to do. They approached it. We talked about how on DarkZero's attacks, especially on this side, it was a bit off-piste. It was trying to go for these sort of different motions. Fantastic. And then there, one more P9's round purely, let's be honest. But again, the Unity, they got just the control that they needed. They just put the air jabs on the side of the sort of computer initiation swing door, and then they went, okay, now we can go underneath and we can do this. The impact didn't catch the exothermics. It was placed low and central enough. And then they just did what they needed to do, even when things started to play against them, because they had done that pressure onto the wall, because they had done that clarity they needed. It was able to help them get into those gunfights in more preferable positions.
I actually was surprised that the Echo didn't win the gunfight there with the shotgun, but you saw from the opposite side of the POV, they basically had like the Supernova with a suppressor on top of it coming around the corner already. They knew exactly when to start the pre-fire.
It's a very long gun.
Very long gun, so if you just swing that out the way they did, the pre-fire, very successful there to find that kill. Either way, Falcons, on to your next attack. You already have P9 in, well, at least on the edge of being in, right below. Between the gong room is going to see if he can find a small opening somewhere, maybe just a bit of a roamer around. Maybe even a target for his grenades to go on with. Now, there is a default cam on there on Dragon, as you just saw, it was active for a second, but P9, of course, can use the help presence to make his presence unknown. Or shoots it. That works as well. Thought he was just going to sneak past, but he just takes it out instead.
Take it out. Why not? Get rid of it. Kills, holding on to the cash bulk, waiting to see if anyone is going to offer themselves up. At this point, there was already at least a body and a following engagement that had gone through. This time, obviously a different site, but they've played themselves a little bit more cautious. They're not going to full send and hang on here to the top of Dragon Stairs as Gong is steadily cleared alongside Cash as well. They're not going to play that extended fight you sometimes see teams do around here.
There's going to be a Yoko drone in the waiting area that is going to be giving away some information to the side of DarkZero. At least they haven't been able to take it out yet, and that means that it's just a threat that's out there, and it's in such an awkward position as well as they do start to make at least a bit of an approach towards the site. Canadian inside the vault knows it could be swung at any given moment as Go will be able to take the first kill to P9.
Player of the previous round, P9, is popped off first here. Another smoke goes through. It doesn't quite get the full pushback onto the breach, and Valentino gets a great swing with the DMR against the SMG. Gav is in a very dangerous position, and O'Kills gets rid of him. They had players in front of him, behind, and the EU1D, a great pinch, and now the man advantage was theirs. They're hoping they don't get caught from the swing round. There doesn't seem to be anyone in a direct position to punish this. They could try and long arm the C4. The Echo drone gets dropped, going for that intel. They're still going to keep it, but you're looking at 30 seconds now, and they're still going to try and make the drive towards where the plant has to go down itself. It's the most dangerous part.
Still a man advantage, still some utility out there as well. 2 grenades to use and 3 flashbangs. Sadly, no more E1Ds. That is maybe going to make it a little bit more difficult. NGR strikes will find one. Knows about the second position though, but it's going to be missing the opportunity to take down Matt's kills as well.
10 seconds, Pamba gets Joker. They're trying to get this kid over this final hurdle, and what was a very clean start to this has unfortunately petered out. Valentino with a double at the end, but he has no diffuser. He's just got to try and drive himself towards the final fight. And he was closer than he should have been, but that was unfortunately just a little bit too little time left by a difference of maybe 10 seconds, if that. And that's something that obviously DarkZero need to be well aware of. Falcons are knocking on that door.
They're definitely knocking on that door. And, you know, if we have to look at the way that currently Falcons is attacking, what we usually see in a lot of maps is we have 2 players on one side of the map with 2 players on the opposite, one that's sort of floating in between. But if we're looking at how Falcons is attacking, they're all entering from the same doorway to some extent. I mean, we did just have the roamer down below, but the rest all entering from, let's say, Dragon Window. And then they start spreading around, but making sure that top floor is taken under control. It's a very unilateral push that they're having. They're not attacking from all kinds of different angles. They're not trying to shepherd out these defenders. Of course, doesn't really work as well on this map. But they're attacking as a unit to make sure there's always a refrag available for them. And if you see how they walk in, they're so quick on the trigger. They come around the corner, you're already dead.
It's fundamentals. It's fundamentals. Fundamentals. It puts the fun into Siege.
Fundamentals.
And Dementals. Because this is mental. We find ourselves moving on to Drug Lab. Or lab in the corner of the room. And, well, it's not the most common seen defensive side. Obviously, Falcons opted not to play it across any of theirs, though it was obviously always an option. Here, DZ getting in as their 3rd rotate, and it's a very short, sharp journey from outside to putting pressure inside the site itself. It's an even shorter one sometimes to getting that kit down behind the bomb chassis inside the lab site itself. So, how do you hold it? Well, you do this. Waste time as wide out as possible. I talked about the wasting time around the top of Dragon, around Gong, before he's not there to entirely find a fight. Yep, but he is there to sort of say, well, slow down. P9, as the Jackal, is going to try and speed things back up. Remember, in the previous round, 10 seconds might have been the distance. The Jackal might be the difference.
Yeah, that's it. You might be able to just catch that one person in a bit of an off angle a little bit earlier, like Canadian right now, down below, in throne. You know, if you manage to get his footsteps down, it's going to be so much easier to just catch him if he walks back in, especially if you have that full top floor under control. Joker around on the barrels as well. He's going to be stopping that rotation back towards the site from him if he spots the opportunity to do so. Now, you see breaches over the top as well. They're just going to be trying to make sure that the players of DarkZero start to fall back towards this site. They do not want to deal with them up on the top floor.
Gav takes a little bit of damage through a spray through the soft there, and as I said, they're still trying to waste as much time as possible. 1:30 left. Every player still standing. They have some control over thrones. They can watch down towards barrel. They've just been droned out, though. It's a Solace that should have some awareness. However,
there's a second player down there, though. Pamba. I'm not sure if Pamba has been droned out. There's 3 on the side. There's 2 in Armory Throne. Those 2 players could be a bit of a, you know, a fun breaker for the side. If it's not for the C4 that takes down Valentino. Well, that's also a lot of fun that's just been broken for the side of Falcons.
Yeah, kicked off the board early here, and obviously was a big drive and has been a consistent big part for the team throughout the run so far. 40 seconds, you lose your buck. There's a lot of soft still standing. Sounds like another C4 might have just potentially popped off, or another explosion of some variety. No, Andrea's still got his in pocket. Something did a lot of damage to Joker. Capcan. Oh, talking of. There he is on the window, dicing with death. P9 almost caught up a pill there. They've got the watch on the opposite side. They're having to rotate round. 20 seconds. They're just going to have to 3, 2, 1, go. The first go is there. Smokes round onto the back. You can see the diffuser is around the side of the bathroom. They want to try and get it closer and closer. The fire. Pamba somehow gets one more. Cavani gets the back of P9. The kit is recollected and instantly dropped back down. Again, with Pamba having a keen watch. Joker is all that's left. Didn't see the Solace. Oh, disaster. Oh, now he sees them. But at this point, he is already out of there. DarkZero pulled themselves ahead once again.
People at home might be wondering, why didn't he see him? You're not watching, like, at that point. You're watching your crosshair, he's watching Split, he's watching the drug lab. He probably thought that barrels was already clear, and then, you know, your peripherals not really being processed as well. So you can't really blame him for that. I mean, the round was basically already over before we got to that point. Good stuff from DarkZero. They were up on the top floor, start receiving pressure. So what do? You go back down.
Go back down.
But you don't put everybody in the site. You put some in Armory and Throne as well. It's going to be, that could have been a double kill if it was tossed like half a second earlier out there.
Oh, this is a cap round, but oh no, it was a gunfight. Okay, there was an explosion that happened around the same time. It was an impact that hit just around the same time. All right. Canadian shouting, "You're still there."
Oh, you're
still there. I mean, that's the most welcoming. That's like Canadian.
You haven't played LAN unless Canadian has shouted.
Unless Canadian has yelled at you. This is LAN now. So it's a badge of honor, I think.
5 seconds
can wear that with pride.
insertion.
Canadian only yells at opponents who deserve it.
Yeah, very true.
Defuse a bomb.
Okay. Back to Armory Throne we go. We just saw a little bit of play out there, some drones to give away information. Now, I was saying about it, like NGR somehow lost the fight the last time around, but then I realized, oh, it's a giant supernova with a suppressor on top. He's playing the exact same thing again.
Hey.
So I'm hoping that he's maybe able to tuck it in a little bit more if he wants to go for a quick swing onto the breach again, if that's even what Falcons want to go for here. There's definitely a lot of pressure instantly towards the top floor to making sure that Cash and Dragon is going to be under their own control, let's say within a minute or so they can start putting up that vertical pressure.
And what Falcons did here really, really well before was those fundamentals. Take what they need and then get the round on the back of it here. And it's down to DarkZero, if anything, to have a better reaction. The first is pull Panda back. They're not playing them as aggressively. They lost the body quite early on. Not even sure what that explosion was showing us.
Not quite sure if
Picture's gone crazy.
Yokai has been taken out as well. NGR has lost one. There's only one left, I believe, somewhere on the board they can use to either deny a plant or to give some information out to the roamers, because there is 2 players playing up at the top. It's going to be actually 3 players playing up at the top. At least it's going to be Gap. At least it's going to be Pamba. I'm not quite sure who the third one is, but they're going to be the first points of pressure. It's Sauce. So Canadian out there as well. 4 players upstairs. There's only 1 on the side. All right. Very aggressive over the top here.
I mean, at what point do Falcons get an idea of just how much pressure's there and how much there isn't there? P9, he's got himself tucked closer. He's just going to open the swing there so they can feel a little bit safer. Valentino, he finds a fight. Ooh, Canadian and Pamba get 1 apiece there. Joker does get 1 on the back before Pamba gets a bit of revenge. P9 is trying to fight his way through on the site itself. Goes for a close swing right inside the door, and there's the supernova getting a pop before it's locked and thrown out of the round by Achieved. At the end of it, that is, I think, the first time DZ have been able to get themselves a little bit of buffer. It is 3 rounds in a row, the first time either team has got those, and Falcons take a timeout.
Because they also realize... I prefer to just listen to the players in the timeouts. Sometimes you can't. 45 seconds for Falcons to try and get this back on the road. 6-4. And if they lose now, that doesn't mean they're out of the tournament.
And it does not.
We're playing Swiss.
I mean,
that means if you have 3 losses, you're out. So this is only the first, if they would.
And let's be honest here, to be a team having your first showing on the sort of international major circuit as they are right now, to be entirely fresh rosters that have brilliantly waved the flag for the MENA region, a region that we have not been able to have represented on the Tier 1 scene until now, they were always going to come up against tougher and tougher and tougher opponents. They could not have come up maybe against more experienced opponents than the ones they're up against, and okay. This Falcons roster were able to hand it to Achieved last time round. Perfect cut to him. But then they've got this fella. This shouty Canadian, who is also called Canadian.
He's actually upset I used an American flag for their team. He's like, where's my flag? I'm sorry. You're Canadian flag. But at the same time, we call Intero an American as well. So.
Yeah, but that's just to irritate. We don't like Intero. We like Troy.
I'm sorry.
Either way, Falcons were always going to find themselves tested more and more. The more you win, the more dangerous opponents you're going to come up against. And this is, as we said, a very tricky map for them. It takes, you know, a good sort of gutsy feeling to go, let's go there, when you're not playing with a full strength thing. Especially, maybe they assumed Border would be the pick.
But do you know what the good news for them is, Emmy?
What's the good news?
They are already top 60. There's only 2 majors this year.
There is.
That means they already have really good odds at making it to the 6th Invitational.
They do.
Even if they will be going out right now and they don't get a single win anymore, if they get an extra win, that ups their chances even more. If they get another one after that, well, I mean, you can basically already start etching them in for a 6th Invitational candidacy.
Get yourself ready for Brazil.
Yeah, get yourself ready for Brazil. I mean, it's a far way out, but a lot of teams and some teams will actually be able to already start booking their tickets after the end of this major.
Okay, timeout from Falcons. They are only 2 rounds away, and they've been able to thread 2 rounds together before, so this is still far from over here. You predicted a 7-4.
I did predict a 7-4.
Or was it a 7-3?
7-4.
7-4. O'Kills will try and be the lead in here. Quick bits of pressure, hot droned ahead. There are some pings on some players, and remember, they sort of had the 1-2 stretch here, but look at this. Unseen pace that we're getting here from Falcons. They've otherwise been quite slow, quite cautious, and quite stuck together. Canadians tricking the breach. The Bandit is able to catch one, punished. Don't know if he can get in position to get the other. It's a little bit of a tricky hop. Pamba takes some damage, though. They're trying to get some stretch and some extension here. Falcons have got a lot of ground very quickly, but they need to try and make use of it. Otherwise, they'll just turn into sitting ducks.
But they kind of just got stuck out there on that wall because Canadians out there now, he has the opportunity to trick it. And if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, there's nothing to stop that from happening. Grenades are being tossed in, will not actually land where they need to land. The second attempt will come through, also not landing right where it needs to. Exothermic goes off, actually made a breach happen now, so there is going to be an opening they can work with here, Falcons, but they need to be aware of DarkZero still being around initiation as well.
Talking of, they've got the swing onto the top of yellow stairs. They're going to see if they can try and come up the bottom of it at the same time with P9 and maybe pinch out Canadian in that power position. There it is, the two-story swing right onto Canadian. P9's all the way around, pre-fires. Should get the kill. Partially blinded. Oh. No, NJR saves the life of Canadian. Mad Skills and O-Kills get one apiece of their own. They do take the territory with one player on the back end here. They have the man advantage. They have 40 seconds. This next kill could be the one that defines the whole round. NJR gets Valentino. Will these words come together? O-Kills is close. Pre-fires. Can't get the full connection. Swaps to the pistol. Goes up and down and finally gets the tag. 30 seconds, Pamba, he's looking to try and buy the support here. Achieved is held off from the site itself. Pamba gets the take onto Joker, a 2 versus 2, trading bodies back and forth, but the pressure is now on Mad Skills. He's got to get in, get that diffuser down, and get his head locked with O-Kills, keeping all the cover in the world. Can they try and find this final connection? 10 seconds now. Achieved bit his way back into the site, but the mirror window's working against him. Mad Skills with the freebie swings round. They're in a 1 versus 1. Just has to wait for the plant. Falcons just can't do it, and DZ finally stop the unbeaten run of the Menomania here in Copenhagen.
Doesn't mean it's the end of Falcons though, as this is only the first of Swiss, but before that, we're gonna head to a quick break so our analysts can break this one down further.
I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems. I solve them. I run through the money. The pressure be calling. Left on my blessings. I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back. Tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something. That's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression is all that I wanted. The phone and affection. I summon and dub it. Cause I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems. I solve them. I run through the money. The pressure be calling. Left on my blessings. I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back. Tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something. That's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression is all that I wanted. The phone and affection. I summon and dub it. Why you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something? Don't hang with it who line for nothing. I see that we different, you riding, I double. I don't do discussions on bragging about hundreds. Don't go to your places, I know that they sunken. Don't call me your brother, I barely could trust it. I talked to a shorty, she bagging the bucket. And I'ma need all of my dollars on corporate, so hand me the money, I divvy the pie. I'ma give all of my people a portion to build them a fortune. I'm flipping the ride. I can't be mixy when iffy the vibe. And 40 on 50 is really the time. Why are you all on my phone like you want me? Like you wasn't pushing the kid to the side. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back. Tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something. That's why I ain't calling.
So it'll be like
Welcome back, everyone. I'm at the Telestation station because I'd like to show you a round that was played very well by DarkZero. And we need to understand a few things before this round commences. We'll see at the roof, we'll see Canadian, and he's sitting there for a very specific reason. We can play the clip because once we see what is happening, we'll see that the players downstairs, they're setting up towards these power positions, they're setting up towards the site. I believe that this has to be the prep phase though, so we'll have to skip forward to the round a little bit further. I would like to see whenever Canadian set on the roof, we can skip through forward faster until we see Canadian on the roof. Eventually what we'll see in this round, Canadian is sitting on the roof with a Candela in his hand. His team is set up on the other side of the map. There's a player around Cafe as well. And they're looking to take the side really, really fast. Now, we saw the in-screen pop-up from Pambazoo sitting over at the bathroom jump in, and we saw Canadians sitting on the hatch. Players are getting ready around the side of Cafe, players are getting ready on the side of Cash, but we just need to skip forward a little bit further until we will eventually see Canadian getting ready for that position. They're waiting very patiently, they're waiting for the call from the player to come in, and this is where we can pause it here. We see Canadian on the roof. If we go back down towards the floor underneath it, this is where we can pause it, because why is he putting out those Candelas? He's putting out those Candelas to get those players out of those power positions, which we see right here. Oak Hills was standing in that hallway. We saw a player being on the yellow stairs earlier as well. They need to get those power positions out for Canadian to drop, for them to take Cafe. Unfortunately, a player dies in Cafe. Unfortunately, Canadian dies in the hallway as well, but the good idea is that they now know where these players are, and we can in fact go for a side execute. We can play from this clip on because we'll see Achieved is going for a plant. There is cover being set up on the other side of the map. The players are on site. And eventually this round will play out not ideally as how DarkZero had it planned, because they wanted that control over on this side of the map. They had those players set up there. They lost a few players, unfortunately, but the round still came down to a plan from the side of DarkZero. They were able to hold onto it successfully. And this is, in my opinion, what differs a team from having a good IGL and a great IGL. Canadian was able to turn this round around, and I do believe that he's now standing with Veracity for an interview as well.
Well, thank you very much for that wonderful illustration there, Anne. As you did mention, I am joined here by Canadian, so I'm going to dive straight on into it. For yourself, the preparations you would have done prior to this event to face off versus Falcons has essentially been nullified now. So were you a little bit thrown off by the display of performance, the play style, and everything that you saw coming out from them?
I had watched them previously at the Gamers 8 event that they played before, and watched them in phase 1. So I kind of understood play style-wise, how they played, but there definitely wasn't a ton of footage to watch from them. That was a big thing, is when we were prepping for them, they only showed a certain amount of maps, and a lot of them we didn't really want to go to anyways, so it was kind of hard to actually prep a map for them. But play style-wise, I think we got a good understanding of how they play. They just play, honestly, very confident. Slow, but confident. Yeah.
So do you think, even though their IGL is the one that has essentially been subbed out because of the issues that's going on, did you feel like there was any sort of change from what you were expecting of them?
That's hard to say. I think probably them being slower might be because they lost their IGL. I think, if someone's filling in for an IGL, it's easy to kind of play very default slow siege, so that could be it. Although I've also seen filling IGLs call very fast, rushy stuff, so it could be either way. But I definitely saw some faster paced stuff in their matches in the MENA games, so it definitely could have been an effect.
Now, talking a little bit more about the MENA region as a whole, do you guys typically scrim versus them? How does it all work? Has any scrimming been done versus teams outside of the region?
I'm sure some European teams have scrimmed them. I've actually heard that a few European teams have. I think it might not have been until more recently, but I've heard that they have. We have scrimmed against Brazilian teams sometimes, but honestly not that often, but we've done it a little bit in the past European teams, but not anytime recently. And then the time where you really get to scrim international teams is at events like this. Yeah. Or if you go to a boot camp in another region, then you get to play against other teams.
Now, talking a little bit more about the operator ban phase, we saw yourself and your team pull out an ace ban. Can you talk me through the thought process, why that was made? Because it's typically not a ban that we often see.
They're a team that likes good guns and comfortable ops. Valentino also, he's filling in as the IGL and filling in to the support role. And he's typically playing fragging comfort entry ops. So just kind of noticing that, and that, you know, maybe he might lean more into an ace rather than a Thermite or Hibana. So just trying to make him uncomfortable.
All right, amazing stuff. Well, thank you for letting me pick your brains just a little bit. I'll let you go and join the rest of your team.
Thanks for having me.
Well, what do we make of that, ladies and gents? How do we feel that one panned out?
I thought it was kind of expected when we saw it in the ban phase, right? We saw that DarkZero had gone to Theme Park. We saw that they had a very clear intention in mind. They hadn't ever seen Falcons on Theme Park because nobody else had, but they backed that their style and that their bans would be good enough to frustrate the hell out of Falcons. And I think once it did, on the attack, it certainly did that.
Yeah, I mean, on the attack first, we could see that it was them struggling a little bit with the Solus, but it was not surprising that the Solus did eventually come through because we know how much Canadian likes to play Solus on their own defenses too. Throughout these rounds, we saw some really creative and good ideas from DarkZero. I mean, I just highlighted one on this illustration, but there was another one where they had the Monty going full force in to push those players back and to then have that player that they're pushing out also be swung from another side. There is literally nothing you can do on the side of Falcons for that moment. And when these things seem to happen, it was like Falcons could come back from that mid-round misery almost, but then when you're playing with a step in IGL to then finish out that round and still pull it towards your favor, that seemed like it was impossible for them today.
No, I love what Canadian said in particular, in the sense that, you know, we don't necessarily have the most amount of scrimming time versus these teams playing from the MENA region. However, teams talk, they talk amongst themselves, and he did mention the fact that he's heard from a lot of European teams as well. To what extent, Fresh, does this kind of influence the decisions you're making? If you yourself don't have that first-hand experience playing against them, are you solely basing it on the information from other teams?
Yeah, I think obviously they will have watched the group games. That's the first thing they will have done when they found out they were playing against them. Went and watched the Falcons group games. I think achieved last year at Gamers 8 when he was with TSM. Did lose against the Falcons. So there's a tiny bit of first-hand experience, but I think once they understand how they play, they can liken it, like you say, to a Brazilian team or to a hyper-aggressive EU team, and then work from there. That's the platform, and they worked from there. And like I say, I think, you know, shout out to their support staff as well, you know, for making those decisions around the maps, around the operator bans, like they said, to try and make Valentino feel uncomfortable. It certainly is the first time anybody's done that this tournament to Falcons, and I think it worked really well.
Yeah, I think it worked most definitely well for them. We saw the boys celebrating. We saw Canadian kind of ecstatic, as it were, with their performance. But coming on up, we have FaZe taking on M&M, the Marshmallows themselves. So we'll be back very, very soon.